I would like to first start by thanking this amazing group of people that we've brought together to talk about what does it mean to create systemic level changes. Because that's really the ultimate goal of ESCALATE. When we look at the changes that we'd like to see, we talk about individual changes. How do I feel being stigmatized as a person living with HIV? We talk about organizational change. But ultimately, we want to know, what does it take to create systemic changes? And we invited you all specifically to this conversation because you either work within a large healthcare system, a large health department system, or, Jackie, in your case, the criminal justice system. So how would you describe the work that you do specifically to end stigma in the United States? How would you describe that work?
You know, I work with the correction system, and to say that I did work in the correction system for 37 years. So, and it was doing HIV education and training and condom distribution. Actually, they used to call me the condom woman in the jails, right? But it was not only dealing with the population that was only HIV positive. I mean, you had people there, like including myself, where I wasn't HIV positive, but I was affected by it in my family and in the jail. And I started by educating not only the incarcerated population, but I also educated the officers, the wardens, and people needed to understand what it was like, because everybody was scared. Everybody was scared. So I felt the need that I needed to go in there because they were coming back into my community, and they needed we needed to help. And while they were in there, nobody wanted nothing to do with them. And I'm like, oh, hell no, excuse my French, but that's not gonna happen. Not in my watch. They're my people. I'm going in.
Exactly, and I think when we first met, we talked about the connection that we've had, because I shared with you that I've had siblings, brothers, a father, uncles. Most of the men in my family have been incarcerated except for me, and they become incarcerated, and then they do come back, and they are part of our community. They are family members. And I think oftentimes we don't have the conversation about what does prevention, what does stigma, what does providing care for people who are incarcerated looks like. So that's why I wanted you to start, because the work that you're doing is so important, and it's not enough.
And I do gotta also, it's not only stigma with HIV for these folks, okay? These folks are coming out, there's stigma because of the color of their skin, stigma because they were HIV, stigma because they were incarcerated, and you name it. It was just like, so you have somebody coming out who did already their time, now they're coming home, and then you got people closing the door. So how do you expect somebody who comes out of incarceration, who's been stigmatized, because you want to get stigmatized, that's it, right? So how do you expect these people to come out of incarceration and be productive if you don't even open the doors, you don't even give them a chance?
Well, I'm a trainer, and I have been doing training since 1995, excuse me. At New York City Department of Health, I've been training since 2015. And what I do is I train providers, people that either work with people who are living with HIV or people who need HIV prevention services. That's my audience. So I realize that when I'm training in a room of 25, 35 people, face to face, now virtually, similar numbers, that I'm in a space of where I can reach a lot of people with what I say, and I take that very seriously. So I think that it's important to create space that's safe, where people feel comfortable to talk about what they don't know, what they want to learn, how they want to improve. So clearly stigma, it's interesting, when you show up in a space with other people, sometimes you either feel good in what you know and you want everybody to know that you know, or you're quiet and you're listening to learn. And you're a little uncomfortable about sharing what you don't know that you should know, right? And let me not judge somebody in the training space that says something that is an ouch or inappropriate, but let's process how we can do that differently so that we can grow. Stigma loves all of that negativity, who's better, who's the best. And so we have to have the conversations and practice and grow and learn. And I know that in the training space I have that platform. So I take that very seriously.
That's what it's all about. We got to learn together.
Absolutely.
We have to learn. 'Cause
So that's
we're all
I'm
growing.
trying. That's how I'm trying to address stigma, is learning.
Jill, thank you for your, and Jackie, thank you for your work. But Jill, you really led right into my next question. So I'll pose this question to Dalvir and Patricio. As you look across the work that you do to end HIV-related stigma, what are the challenges that you face? Dalvir, let's start with you. What challenges do you face in ending stigma?
Oh, I forgot my list. It's so big. But I would definitely say that being part of a bureaucracy is very challenging. Some of those challenges manifest as when we have our own clinics. Are our clinics enforcing an anti-stigma framework? Do our clinics welcome people of color or welcome people that are non-binary or not from a protected category? And we end up getting stuck at, but to what extent do we want to endorse this, you know? And there's so much fear in a bureaucracy to co-sign anti-stigma work because it really requires self-reflection, it requires education, it requires a moment of pause to say, where am I biased? Where are my biases? As a leader, as an institution, where are my biases and where am I going to correct myself and how am I going to hold myself accountable? And it's so embarrassing to hold yourself accountable publicly. But we have to do it. I do think that it's a thought, it's a theory, it's a principle, it's an ethos that we need to embed into our institutions, and that's going to take some time. And as we continue to work with you and with ESCALATE and the TA team, I certainly see those barriers as they're coming through in the technical assistance programs, and even as I'm trying to build out an anti-stigma strategy for our own bureau, it feels so challenging because the work is so extensive. Where do you start and where do you end? So I would certainly say for New York City, which is huge and was at the center of the pandemic, I think we're really rebuilding an infrastructure, but we don't know how. So we're learning, and I would be interested to hear more from you.
I like to remind people that this movement with HIV did not start with bureaucracy. The government wanted nothing to do with us. Right. It required people pretending to die in front of NIH to get people to even listen. But at the same time, we also have to remember that those folks were also very white folks. And we tend to forget that we neglected entire parts of our, of our community. And so I think that's a huge thing that I try to remind people, that we need to stop commoditizing HIV care. We need to step back and remember that this is a movement and we're not HIV clinics. We're not AIDS service organizations. At one point, we were a bunch of random people together trying to serve a community that had no services. And we're lucky to have gotten the government on our side to some extent, but I think very much that comes with stigma. And so I think sometimes a huge part of it is knowing when your voice is no longer needed and inviting the people whose voices should be at the table, and you get up and walk out. Because that sometimes is the most powerful thing, like disrupting that status quo just becomes so important in our work.
We're experiencing the same things that the community is experiencing because we are the community. And so, yeah, we've got stigma going on within these big bureaucracies because we live on a planet that judges each other. We need everybody that's living and breathing needs to be involved in resolving and ending stigma because we all are subject to it. It's just that we have different levels of privilege depending on where we sit on the ladder. But we all are subject to being stigmatized and rejected from access to knowledge and information. Everybody is experiencing it, right? Black women, we've been talking about black women all day at this conference. We're at the bottom. So you bring us up, everybody goes up. We don't switch places. Everybody gets better. We all need to be thinking about this. That's one way.
When people don't represent the community at the top, stigma is going to be prevalent. Racism is going to be prevalent. Any kind of, we can't work to target HIV stigma if the division commissioner doesn't represent that community. It's just not going to happen because you don't have the same passion. And we are hiring. The department certainly is hiring people of color. But again, as Jill said, we're hiring them at most for middle management. And middle management doesn't give you the kind of impact that somebody in a higher administrative level will give you. And I think that's a problem. So when we're looking at targeting stigma and like really going back to your question, I can build out an entire strategy around anti-stigma work. But unless my boss's bosses don't buy in, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Thank you, Dalvia, for that.
Yes, absolutely.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
thank you.
So you've heard it from the experts, the folks who are leading the systems that are going to make the changes so that we can end HIV-related stigma in the United States. So thank you all again for your time. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your effort. As I want to highlight just one more time, we are the community that we serve, and we're going to change these systems from the top down. So thank you for your time. We're going to do it. Let's do it. Thank you.